What's up, everybody? Welcome to the channel. It's been a while. Um, we went through a lot of stuff. We had this whole legal activism thing. You really see all the other people involved, what they're doing, the pain they had to go through to do what they're doing. Dean Clifford, I did a video with. He was one of my kind of like mentors back in the day. Even before him would have been like that Johnny, what's his name? Johnny Sovereign or something like that, way back in the day. There's a lot of things that we learn from each other. We need to keep doing that. But we go through a lot. We go through a lot together. And it should be a community, but it's not. It's not a community because, call it what you will, but if there's not a financial basis against it or to it, it doesn't happen. So people want a big financial put into this. This is going to happen. I know here locally, the Mackinac Group put in legislation against the state of Michigan that made things kind of move into a certain direction, but didn't address all the things that were wrong going on with the legal society here in the state of Michigan. And I wish that there was just something more where we could all input to try to drive our opinion towards what we think our local legal system should be. And I don't think that's happening anywhere at all. But even when it's created, it needs an open eye to people to let them know that things are being created. They should join in. We should try to push this to try to get them to do the right thing on the route that they were prescribed to do. The way I've always looked at law is if law is not being abided by, even by the government, your three rights are to petition, which you can do at whitehouse.gov for the federal branch, protest, which we've seen hundreds of examples of that, and then revolt is the ultimate means by which of getting a government to do what you're supposed to, getting a government to do what it's supposed to do, and it should be by the majority of the people, not just a ragtag group, not just a group of 10, 15, whatever, but it should be a demonstration, and that demonstration should invoke a volume of people who support but don't want to participate, and that should be the means by which legislation moves. And it shouldn't even be a legislation, because if there's already legislation that's contradicting constitutional rights, we're not even, you can't even cross that barrier because it's already been ruled against, stare decisis and all that. So we kind of need a little more community group think. If all the left-wing people in the political sphere want to have a proper communal living, then perhaps we should have opinions by everyone pulled together, and no legislation moves forward without the majority of the opinions of the entire mass. So what does that mean? Well, if there's 300 million people that live in the United States of America, however many of them are legal adults who could register to vote, blah blah blah, do all that. They have the opportunity to do that. If the majority of that says something shouldn't happen, then it shouldn't happen. Is this process happening right now in the US legal system or your local government system? No, it's not. And it's been allowed to happen for years, decades. We're breaching a half a century where these things have been allowed to just happen. And we have to be more participatory in that and then demand that things operate the right way when they don't. And if, even with all this, we need to take in consideration, why has the government that we elected to make decisions on our own behalf created such a superstructure that has denied us that majority right decision and has taken liberties in moving stuff from a constitutional court into an administrative court? I.e., example would be foreclosures. When you can no longer pay your property taxes on your quote unquote property that you think you own, the government will put you through a court process that is administrative through the county, that's supposed to be powered by the state in which you're technically reside in. And then, just follow those processes to try to get you to pay more or to pay back those taxes one way or another. We're already at a deficit of constitutional rights because of that. Nobody's putting the governments in check of what they're constitutionally obligated to do for the people. And that's abhorrent. It's disgusting, and no US soldier should ever go to war again, ever, until this gets corrected. Because our own government is literally taking the rights away from US people. Why are we fighting foreign wars when our own government here is the main enemy towards the people? So I don't know if you know this, but the United States soldiers, when they do their oath of office, they do their sworn contract and everything to the federal government or state local government, is to abide by the U.S. Constitution. And then who gets to decide what your constitutional rights are? It's like the buck gets passed down the line. Oh, your constitutional rights actually don't mean this. They mean this, actually. So when you think you own a land and private property, you actually don't, because the government needs its taxes. It needs taxes to pay the police. So therefore, you don't actually own the property, because we need to charge you the use of that land so that we can get the revenue from it to pay for what we need to provide you with. Do you see the absolute ignorance of relativity with that? It does not make any sense. Why would I pay a government something to provide me with that I already had, respectively, from it? That does not make any sense. So property taxes don't make any sense. Income taxes don't make any sense. And that's why they're never held in a constitutional court. It's always an administrative court. Who holds administrative courts? The executive department of the government. And that is the second branch of the government. So, when you have a hearing there in the executive branch, they waive all your constitutional rights, your right to evidence, witness, um, trial by jury. Eighth Amendment is, extreme fines or punishments that go too obscene kind of deal. All that's included. So, are you going to sit there and let the government take from you what you agreed is not right? The whole way for the United States government to work, supposedly, through its original constitution, through everything, to break away from the kingdoms and the fiefdoms of all the monarchs in the past, was we will now give U.S. citizens the right to own private property. And then it got solidified by George Washington, and I want to say Hamilton, through land patents. And that gave you the right to tell the government to say, F you don't have a right to any of my stuff. And that became the power that the servant, the peasant, the whatever was in the kingdom, the lower level person, finally now had a power to tell the government that we're in control, not you. And that got taken away in 1865. So there's a lot to take in. There's a lot to learn. The government's not going to teach you this because the government wants to control this. And the Bar Association is heavily embedded in keeping this system forefront. So it kind of seems like a co-partnership of what happened after 1865 with the United States. There's a lot to look into. Look into it on your own. Don't just believe what I say. But basically, you are now a slave. We are all slaves to a country that drives itself in debt to a global banking network, which I'm not going into right now, but that's what it's doing. It had to devolve itself in order to reunite itself with a worldly empire without U.S. citizens, say in any of it. And that's where you're at right now. But you can take it back. And it is possible. Why? We never lost our rights. You still have the right to petition, protest, and revolt. Who's doing it on these means? Nobody. Nobody at all. We're seeing all these fights on stupid ass social problems that were never real problems here in the US, ever. And now it's become a focal point to keep us away from fighting for the real cause. So think about that for a minute, and I'll get back to you later.